IRIS-UXS is a leading airspace awareness system developed to enable the safe operation of unmanned aerial systems beyond visual line of sight. The system fuses real-time sensor data from a variety of sources to give drone operators a clear and comprehensive picture of the airspace where they are operating. IRIS-UXS presents users with a configurable workspace that can be divided into two viewing panes. A pop-out panel contains a list of cards that can feature a variety of maps, data and video feeds, and even other applications that can be dragged and dropped into one of the two viewing panes. The system provides 2D and 3D map views of the mission area and a variety of data overlays, including operational areas, airspaces, airports and obstacles, and data layers including weather feeds. The pilot's UAS, or own ship, and other aircraft are shown in relation to the terrain and airspace features. The operator can customize the active view by turning data layers on and off. IRIS-UXS includes decision support tools like range and bearing lines and detect and avoid safety features, including automated conflict alerts and airspace intrusion alerts. The IRIS system works with a wide variety of map formats and data sources, including WMTS web maps, vector street maps, and satellite imagery, all of which can be customized in terms of stacking order and transparency. IRIS-UXS can display the mission area as basic terrain or as a fully rendered digital surface model that shows individual buildings with a high degree of accuracy. Other decision support features include real-time line-of-sight computation and terrain proximity display. By combining live sensor data with network data feeds, IRIS can provide a horizonless air picture that extends the visibility of air traffic beyond the immediate sensor range. To learn more about IRIS-UXS or to arrange for a demonstration, contact Kongsberg Geospatial or visit our website.
Hey everybody, Dawn Zoldai here, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and I'm here today with Thomas Jimenez from Kongsberg Geospatial to talk to you about how Kongsberg Geospatial's IRIS terminal enables beyond visual line of sight at scale through electronic observers, or EOs. So, hey Thomas.
Hey Dawn, how are you doing? It's lovely to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about Kongsberg and Kongsberg Geospatial?
Yes, absolutely. I'll start us off with a little bit of a company background. Might be a little more helpful. A lot of people haven't heard of Kongsberg. It's one of these companies that is surprisingly large, but a lot of people haven't heard of. We are a large company. We're over 200 years old, which you can't really. So not a lot of people in the drone industry are saying they're over 200 years old. Yeah, we've got more than 12,000 employees, and we work in a huge array of sectors in the defense side, marine, aerospace, offshore, and oil and gas. And that's our parent company, Kongsberg. Within Kongsberg, there's a number of different subdivisions: defense and aerospace, maritime, and digital. And us, Kongsberg Geospatial, we fall on that left side of the screen, which is defense and aerospace. Our headquarters at KG, while our parents' headquarters are in Norway, our headquarters at KG are in Ottawa. We're just over 30 years old. Smaller team, we're in the 12,000s. We have 64 in our team. Majority of our team are in Ottawa, and there's some of us, like myself, that are based in the US. I'm based here in Florida. And we focus on situational awareness, geospatial visualization, software solutions. We also, all of our clients are worldwide. So what does that mean? Well, here's a little more about the company. We, as I mentioned, we're 30 years old. Originally, it started as a completely separate company called Gallium. Also, it's still in Ottawa. In 2006, we got bought by Kongsberg, the larger company in Norway, and then they renamed the company Kongsberg Geospatial. Throughout our history, as you can see here, I won't go through them, but we've worked on a lot of different projects, most of them in the defense space, and most of them based on our TerraLens platform, which is the super performant mapping SDK. Our clients buy this solution, and then they build their solutions as they need for their individual use case, again, nearly always in the defense space, TerraLens is that engine in the background that works on the mapping. And again, here's some of the places that you see TerraLens. So focusing more so on what we're going to talk about today, which is Iris Terminal. The origins of Iris Terminal, if you like, originally came from the NASAMS fire control system. In 2015, we repurposed that system and upgraded it and made it look better. And in 2017 was the first time that we actually repurposed that for UAS, so for situational awareness and for integrating it into unmanned aerial systems. And subsequently now we're on version 2.0, which is instead of portrait, it's landscape. And that's how we've arrived at. So Iris is built on that TerraLens mapping engine, but it's actually a software that we built and adapted from missile fire systems to drone usage. And today, we're going to talk about Terminal in the bottom left for the most part, but basically there's a whole family of Iris products. Terminal, we'll discuss today, a GCS, a ground control system, and counter UAS applications as well as a small vertical that we do inside UTM as well. And we'll go into more detail once we look in a second at the UI, but once we start talking about EOs and VOs and how we're moving forward with beyond visual line of sight, our aim here is to reduce that cognitive load on the operator, provide decision support tools so as to help them achieve these beyond visual line of sight missions safely. We're going to talk about sensors in a second, but basically this is what we're trying to get away from. If every sensor has a screen, we're just confusing people.
My head would explode if I was this person, having to manage like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens, 8 if you count the box in front of them. 9 if you count the clock.
Yeah, that's right. And then some of the ConOps do involve this, right? We're getting into really cool complex operations, and with every bit of complexity comes a sensor, with every sensor comes a screen. So we need to try and make all this interesting technology work in a way that's easy on the user. So yeah, I'll stop sharing this here now.
You alluded to it, Thomas, but you have this rich history, and the company does in the defense sector. At some point, you looked at the commercial and the uncrewed aircraft sector and said, "Hey, this is a place where we need to be," and you created Iris Terminal. So, why did Kongsberg Geospatial create Iris Terminal?
We've all been in the industry excited, waiting for beyond visual line of sight to really get developed and used. Iris Terminal, in its application to unmanned aerial systems, is that forward-looking approach saying sooner or later we're going to have to, once we go beyond visual line of sight, we're going to have to be able to give people the tools so that they can deconflict the airspace. Anyone who's done their Part 107s, whatever, it's all about deconflicting your airspace, whether that's through the pilot, through a visual observer. And sooner or later, once these missions got complex, we were going to have to provide a better tool. And with these better tools, everyone's got a solution or a piece of hardware. But the truth is that the real solution is a layering of a bunch of hardwares. So what do? We're specialists in screens. We don't sell hardware. We don't know any of that. And what Terminal is a way of layering all of this best-in-class hardware on one screen and using all of our 30 years of pedigree of visualization to make sure that it's a clean UI for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with that rich defense heritage, the military's been doing beyond visual line of sight forever, almost. I mean, I should know. I was in the Air Force, and that is how, right, drone operations have been done. So to think that, the commercial sector needs to go there, obviously to scale, for repeatability, for economic viability, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I love what you're doing with it. So we talked a little bit about the origins of the platform, but I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about this core layout, because we saw the screen just a bit, but I'd like to dive deeper into that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to share my live one that I've got here. So this is what most people see when they open up their Iris Terminal. I'll simplify this 1 second here. So we start here. So this is our 2D layout. It's sort of familiar, with what we're used to in other mapping solutions, but there's a lot of complexity to it, which we'll touch on in a second. So we can toggle through various different mapping layers as we'd be used to in a Google Maps or anything else. Then on our left-hand side,
can I interrupt for a second? Like, what are we looking at here? Is this a particular location, or like, what am I seeing as I'm looking at the screen there?
Yeah, so we're here. We're centered in Denver, Colorado. I'm gonna.
Right near me.
Yay! I've got other demos that are centered closer to me in Fort Lauderdale, but this was my choice for
Well,
the show.
Denver's airspace is super complex.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're seeing that already on this screen.
Yeah, so I've pulled in our 3D viewport on the left and our 2D viewport on the right. So what we're basically seeing is the same environment in 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions. I'll run through real quick what we're seeing in various things here. Firstly, our airspaces. This is very important to us. All of these airspaces that we're pulling in, if we look at it almost from the European approach, we've got to determine our risk class and our ground risk class. Our ground risk class incorporates things like population densities, which we can incorporate our population density maps, volumes of road traffic, if that's defined in the ConOps. Here we can see airspaces as well. These are all pulling in via our friends at Aloft. So we pull this in straight from LANC or LANC. If I tap on any of these, we can see this is Denver's Class B. We can see our floors and ceilings. What do we got here? We've got Englewood Class D. What's even more exciting is to prove the point that this refreshes every 15 minutes. We got real-time airspaces here. So I'm pulling in here. I haven't even noticed this. So Empower Field, I guess, has I guess there's maybe a game coming up sometime soon, but we've got a airspace restriction here, and it looks like next to it, that's probably Coors Field. There we go. Yeah.
Yep.
So here we're pulling in all of our real-time airspaces, and we can see them in 2D and 3D over here. Then in terms of these green rings that you see here, I can adjust this sensor footprint intensity here. So you can zoom it in and out a little, but ultimately what those are, and I'll zoom in a little on them. These are footprints for DAA. So if we're talking a linear inspection.
Detect and avoid.
That's right, sorry, yeah, detect and avoid. This example here, those circles are 4 Echo Guard panels. So Echo Guard panels that cover a 360-degree radius. And we can also see from the 3D footprint, the sort of 3D area that they cover, their field of view. So this gives the user, and this is actually defined in the new WSEG questions for DAA, sorry, for Beyond Visual Line of Sight for the FAA. We can prove out that the DAA of choice, let's say the client here has said, listen, we want Echo Guard panels. We can prove that their corridor is covered by these DAA systems.
Oh, okay.
Similarly,
so the importance of this, especially right now, in place, at least in the United States, where we don't have a beyond visual line of sight rule, is everybody's having to get these waivers. And you have to prove out your safety case. So if I'm, one of your customers, I can go to the FAA and prove out and say, look, here's my DAA kind of bubbles of protection to help me obtain that waiver.
That's right, yeah. In your ConOps, you're going to be defining a lot of stuff, a lot of safety aspects about the aircraft, safety aspects about your team. But then there are sections which are going to refer to that DAA portion, and they're going to want to know about the hardware involved. What DAA hardware are you choosing? You've got Echodynes, you've got Cassia Gs, whatever it may be. And then how are you visualizing it? And you're visualizing it, in this case, with our Iris terminal platform.
Yep.
So
now,
we're all...
question, Thomas. You're pulling in sensors here. So is your platform, is Iris Terminal sensor agnostic? In other words, can you plug and play with, like, for example, say it's an Ecodyne radar versus a matrix space radar, or all of the above?
Absolutely, 100%. Basically, our clients normally come to us with their ConOps. They say, listen, Thomas, we're working with, say, a Fortum radar, and we're working with this solution, that solution. And we tie in their choice. We're completely sensor agnostic. We do work with what we call our preferred partners. It doesn't mean that we specifically choose or recommend those partners, but we just commit to the fact that we'll upkeep all of the services for those. So if Echo Dyne, for example, keeps increasing or brings out new versions, we'll take care of that for them. If people come to us with a very specific sensor, then we will build the solution around that. But there's additional costs to make sure that we keep up with how the sensor, their versioning. But yeah, we're completely sensor agnostic. Yeah.
All right. And so you have this thing, I think it's called a correlator, or what's the correlator function about?
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll pull up a scenario here real quick. So what we're looking at here, let me change this map here real quick. What we're looking at here is a linear inspection of train lines, right?
Is that the squiggle? Is that the squiggle kind of bright green line that I'm looking at in both kind of sectors of your screen?
It is, except I'm going to start a new one right here.
Okay.
Let's see.
I was going to say that is one funky train line. Oh, that would be like the drone. That would be like the drone crossing the tracks, like in kind of a serpentine pattern.
Yeah, that one was more of an inspection pattern. Let's see. I'm going to launch a scenario here. So this is going to be my my linear inspection scenario. Okay. So here we have our aircraft. I'm actually going to go into my deck of cards here and pull in one more feature, which is our track list. It's going to start making sense in a second. Here we see our aircraft is called S05 Zulu. It's traveling here, following this train line, and it's traveling throughout our DAA corridor. And this is so now we're seeing our conflict avoidance service working. And we're going to get into why this is all important in a second. Yeah. The system's picked up that there's a Cessna 172 coming in.
Is that why it turned yellow?
That's right. Yeah, we've got an alert. We got an alert here. I'm going to make this pop out a little more. So now we have a countdown, and the system's telling our pilot or our airspace manager that we've got a horizontal separation of 17,000 feet, a vertical separation of 498 feet, and there's 23 seconds until our loss of well clear. So ultimately, what we're doing here is this person's job at hand is to focus on inspecting train lines. Right. But now it's issued an alert. You can't hear it, but it's very loud. There's a beeping noise happening for me right now, and it draws my attention to what's happening here. That correlator that you discussed before, this aircraft has stepped into various. It's broadcasting on ADS-B, but on the top left, I can see that my echoes, Echo Charlie and Echo Bravo, have picked it up as well. Any traditional system would mean, I'm just going to, while we're talking through this, I'm going to stop it and start it again so it makes sense for everyone watching. Any traditional system would, every time a track comes in, there'd be a new track. So we'd have an ADS-B track for this aircraft, and we'd also have a radar track. And then when it steps on our second radar, we'd probably have a third track. Okay. So we're confusing people rather than helping them out. What correlator does is it identifies that this is the same airplane. It's just coming in, and now our radar is picking it up. Yeah. Rather than confusing you, you'll see for a split second it looks like two. The system understands it and it correlates it back into one, and that's that correlator working.
So it's basically like a data fusion, and it gives the operator, kind of holistic information and to make a decision.
That's right. Going back to that earlier person with all those screens, every one of those would have one. We've put it all on one pane of glass. That's awesome. We're simplifying the decision making. We're giving them support tools. Yeah. So here we can see, so there it split for a second and came back. So that's our correlator working, and this is us warning the person whose job at hand is to inspect train lines that there's a possible alert. This sound that you can't hear, which is quite good because it's really annoying. It's this alert that's telling me here that we've got an alert between Aero 5 Zulu and this Cessna 172, which I can acknowledge.
So is that what you call the conflict warning?
That's correct. Yeah. So this is our, and this is built by us. It's all in house, and it understands based on our aircraft's direction of travel and the characteristics of the aircraft. If it's a quadcopter, if it's a fixed wing, whatever it may be, any potential risks that are happening. This, at the moment, I've only got this in my demo traffic. And while we're talking, I'm going to launch a different demo, which is going to showcase something else. But you got to think, in Denver right now, there's tons of airplanes flying over top.
I just flew in from somewhere recently, and yes, there's a lot of planes.
Yeah, so we need to focus. This person, let's say they're doing utility inspection or gas pipeline inspection. Their job at hand, like we said, is making sure they're getting the right data sets. All this aircraft information that's happening over Denver isn't relevant. So our system picks out the stuff that's relevant and alerts the user. And again, that was an example of someone who was broadcasting on ADS-B. So
Right.
we could see that, here we go. This is a different view. So Arrow 5 Zulu is on its way back now to that rail yard. The behavior we saw before was someone broadcasting on ADS-B. Now we're going to see what the behavior would be like if, and we're inside a mode C veil here, everyone should be broadcasting, so this is an interesting example, but in the event that someone does show up and they're not broadcasting, the platform similarly will still showcase it through their DAA, their choice of DAA.
Right.
So like we said before here, these clients chose Echodyne. The system there has told us that there's a non-cooperative coming in from the east, and the system's alerted us right away. Because they're not broadcasting, we don't know. We don't know that it's a Cessna 172, whatever it may be, but the behavior is the same. And similarly, we'll see that as soon as this non-cooperative aircraft enters various sensors, the correlator is going to work in the same way. It's going to identify, there we go, for a split second, it recognizes it as two aircraft. The system says, hold on a second, same aircraft, and my Cassia and my Echodyne are both picking it up.
Okay.
So this is this one holistic view, which gives you all of your sensor data sets pushed into one screen, and it puts everything with in relation to your own ship.
And then, of course, the decision support tool of conflict warning, you know, where if there actually is a potential danger, it will then alert you, as you said, with the very loud, obnoxious, I guess, warning sound. And also it has that red box, I guess, that popped up.
Yes, that's right. It's all of your warning tools. But yes, those decision support tools are all the ones that it's very easy for us. A lot of us have flown in this visual line of sight environment where we kind of have reference of what we're doing, and you know we're here, our aircraft's there, we're looking at the sky, we see one there. Once we start going complex beyond visual line of sight, we need tools to help us. We're imagining a 3D volume in space that's completely far away from us. So all these decision support tools. I keep insisting always because I've done a lot of utility inspection, and I know that my job when I'm out there flying days and days of transmission lines is to get the right pictures. We need the right data sets. It's expensive if we have to return. So safety is always paramount, but what pays the bills is getting those data sets. So we need systems where the platform, the operator can do the job at hand, and the platform is going to alert them of those risks.
Well, and Thomas, remind me, this term we've been mentioning, this electronic observer or EO, is that something that's in the Canadian regulations? I feel like I read that somewhere also in Australia, this EO concept, or is that a term that you at KG have kind of created to explain what it is your system does?
No. It's actually detailed in one of the most recent. It wasn't a waiver; it was an exemption. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen real quick. Was the Phoenix Air Unmanned exemption?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so it's named there, and this electronic observer. Again, we've always worked with visual observers as this. You know, initially we had the pilots and they're keeping an eye on their airspace. As we started going on more complex, we had visual observers. The visual observer's job is to deconflict the airspace,
right?
Which is well and good within eye shot of a visual observer. As we start getting further afield, we need solutions to enable these complex missions, and that's where the electronic observers come in lieu of visual observers. So we're seeing them in, for example, the Phoenix Air Unmanned exemption, and the team, the UAS integration office at the FAA is really they're getting a lot of traction, and they're doing a lot of interesting stuff in the last year.
Yep.
With exemptions like this, we're starting to get into more complex projects and more complex ConOps. And there's a flavor for everyone, right? We've got a lot of the drone-in-a-box solutions, for example. I've worked with a lot of utilities companies. We can include a lot of missions inside, for example, shielding and masking, as they call it, depending, shielding and masking. And that makes sense if we're operating around, say, utility substation,
Yeah.
something that's relatively
Or
controlled, or say
tower.
a solar farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a certain scope, there's a certain area, and we're not going to go too high. Once we go into really complex operations, like utility inspections that are going long distance, like 50 plus miles, or oil and gas, there's a lot of the oil and gas world that's using drones for long range inspection. There's also there's another one I can't think of right now, but the delivery space, I guess.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, that's right. The dream and the hope for drone delivery is that, folks like Drone Up as an example for Walmart, don't have to like send somebody running to find, make sure the package is landing okay, and have this tower thing so they can watch the drone fly. I mean, yeah. That's the vision, right? But, we're talking, some of these, your EO concept, right? And obviously some of the threats are airborne and moving, they're dynamic. Of course, a very big concern is terrain. So tell us a little bit about terrain awareness, because I know even for manned aircraft, depending on the weather situation, terrain can be deadly. And, there's not people aboard, these aircraft, but nevertheless, we don't want to be crashing into mountains. We don't want to be crashing into buildings. So I think we might have a video to roll on this.
That's right, yeah. So we've got a video, and this is one of our additional services. Again, these decision support services, operator support services. What we're seeing here is our terrain warning. In Florida, we hardly need it. It's super flat here. But once we start working in terrains that are, more complex,
like Denver,
like Denver, exactly.
There are mountains everywhere.
Like half of Canada.
Yeah.
In fact, anything west. We don't see this drone. This drone's operating 50, 70, 30 miles away from us. We need tools which enable us to know if getting in contact or getting close to this terrain is a risk. So our terrain warning system, which you can see here, the way it operates is we set the parameters of confidence intervals, we set the radius, and the system will tell us if at any point we're getting too close, and it'll also issue an annoying audible alert if at any point our aircraft is getting too close to that terrain. It's easy for us to assume in a BVLOS world that we can see the terrain. Once we go long range beyond visual line of sight, we need to have those references with regards to the landscape to make sure that there is no risk or reduced risk of coming in contact with the landscape.
Absolutely. We've been kind of talking a little bit about air risk here, but you'd mentioned ground risk, and I know that that's a big concern when you're looking to get these waivers. You'd mentioned population density maps. Tell us a little bit more about that feature and function.
Yeah, so embedded in some of these ConOps, in Europe they do it slightly different. So first you measure your ground risk class, and then you measure your air risk class, and then you get a SAIL score and all this. And we can basically support that. And the FAA is no different. The FAA wants to know, once we get into complex missions, are we flying over very densely populated areas? Yes or no? Maybe the ConOps or the exemption lists population densities that you're allowed to fly over and ones that you're not allowed to fly over, or road volume densities. So we overlay all that data, and we can push out the mission as it's happening and alert if at any point we're stepping on or stepping near areas where we exceed that population density. So if our mission diverts and goes towards an area of high population density, the platform will alert the user that maybe they have to, maybe it's an evasive maneuver and they have to, but it'll certainly alert that at this point you're over population density higher than what is defined in your ConOps.
Got it. Okay, very cool. So I want to talk a little bit more conceptually about this transition from visual observer to electronic observer. As we talk about this EO concept, obviously it fairly encompasses detect and avoid systems. It encompasses ADS-B. What exactly, what else are we talking about here, and how does it all weave into Iris Terminal?
Yeah, I think that like I said, it's exciting that, particularly under the FAA and the UAS, we're starting to see these complex operations are starting to happen and they're getting approved. And EO, for the time being, is here to stay. I don't think that we are going to reach a point where it's similar to Europe. I was just in Europe this week, and speaking to a lot of people, and the European approach is different at times. They're happy to take a certain amount of risk, and there's areas where they're allowed to fly, and they have no DAA, so they work differently as well with broadcasting ADS-B and so on and so forth. In the US, when I sit on my patio here in Florida, there's a lot of air traffic. There's commercial air traffic. There's GA traffic. Yeah, and when I would go to see my family in Europe, there's a lot less air traffic. I don't think we're going to see a point in the US, unless, maybe very segregated airspaces, where we're going to just get away with having no observation, no electronic observation. So as we bring in EOs in lieu of VOs, it's a matter of how are we observing this electronically? Are we happy with just cooperative traffic broadcasting ADS-B? In a lot of use cases, that won't be sufficient. We're going to have to be able to.
Honest, I'll tell you right now, in agricultural use cases, it won't apply because, the manned aircraft, the crewed aircraft, they don't have to squawk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so many of those use cases are the ones where we need beyond visual line sight to happen for complications. All that value set, which has been trapped for years, we can do that now. And with electronic observers and the right visualization, because it all boils down to this aspect of reducing that cognitive load. The way this is going to work is there's going to be operators, pilots, who are focusing on that, take a gas pipeline inspection, and they have to look for methane leaks. And alongside, you're going to have someone who's their airspace observer, and they're making sure that even though the aircraft is 50 miles away, the airspace is deconflicted. And that's going to be one way or another down to electronic observers. And the technology involved in that, if every time we have one of those sensors or feeds or something, we have another screen, and now we're making it super complex. And that's where Iris comes in. We've got this one pane of glass. We overlay everything, including your mission data, your population densities, your live traffic. So we're getting air risk class, ground risk class, and real-time traffic and possible conflicts visualized so that the airspace manager has a full picture of the airspace that the aircraft is operating in, even if it's miles away from them.
So we've been really focusing on Iris terminal, but you also have GCS, or the ground control station. How does Iris relate to your GCS product?
So Iris is Iris Terminal. Iris GCS is basically built on the back of Iris Terminal. So Iris Terminal is everything we've discussed: airspace deconfliction, visualization, and so on. But then Iris GCS, and I should say Iris GCS is less of an off-the-shelf solution. Terminal is more off-the-shelf. We customize it, but it's off-the-shelf. Iris GCS, we work with our clients, and normally they're clients that are they've got large fleets of aircraft. They don't have a specific model. They might have various models, various even airframe types. So with that screen that you just saw, there's two additional modules, and one of them is the mission planner module. A lot of us in the industry have used mission planners, anything from your DJI ones to your drone deploys, whatever it may be. So we have a mission planner module where the clients can build 1, 20, 50 missions. And then we have the mission execution role where we allocate a drone to a mission and execute the mission. So it's basically Iris Terminal with those features bolted on, so we can manage many-to-one operations in remote operating centers. And that's the key part of Iris GCS, is that many-to-one remote operating center, but all importantly, built on that backbone of terminal that has all these sensor feeds and deconfliction. So now if I'm sending out a drone so as to go and deliver a blood sample, not only if I built the mission and executed the mission, I'm seeing real-time neighboring traffic and deconflicting the airspace all on that one pane of glass.
Or better yet, like you said, you've got a fleet of drones that are delivering blood samples in a particular location simultaneously, being controlled by one operator. This is where GCS comes in. That makes sense. So, security is such a big issue, and we're talking about a lot of different sensors, a lot of different feeds getting fused together into this one operating picture. Tell us a little bit about your kind of software assurance.
Yeah, so in the ARC report in March, there was a discussion of integrating software assurance. And because of our defense background, we have a very strong pedigree in building 2 software assurance requirements.
So
Yeah, we're not sure when it'll enter the enterprise space, but we're basically ready to build to that level. And if, for example, I'll just throw, if, for example, we're required to build to a DAL 278 level 4, we have the pedigree in the team to do that. So we can build to those levels. And it might not be, some things are faster than others. It might not be next year or the year after, but sooner or later, as UAS gets more integrated into the airspace, I think that there will be a requirement to go to certain software assurance levels, because we're flying aircraft through space that pose a risk to other aircraft, to people on the ground, and so on. And we're ready to build to that level.
Oh, I think it's just a matter of time, Thomas. Yeah, I mean, hopefully in the United States, we'll see this beyond visual line of sight, notice of public rulemaking next year, like the FAA is saying. But, cybersecurity and just security of drones in general, I mean, if the Russia-Ukraine conflict has taught us anything, is that, drones can be hacked, they can be spoofed. Making sure the data you're actually seeing is reliable and accurate is going to be critical as we go to these highly complex and advanced operations, no doubt. So we are getting close to our time here. And Thomas, I want to make sure that we've covered everything you wanted to cover about Iris Terminal today. And also, if you could please tell people like how they can reach you and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's been great. Thanks so much for having me on. I love it. I love watching everything that you do. To me, I'm very excited about where beyond visual line of sight is going. I think that this year we've seen a huge increase on the regulatory side. I think the FAA really knows that this is important. I'm excited about where beyond visual line of sight is going. I'm excited that we at KG are involved in a lot of those complex missions. We're going to need solutions like this, and we want to work hand in hand with those complex operators and with the FAA and just make sure that the solution works to keep the skies safe, keep operations safe, but to be able to deliver those data sets like long range utility inspections, reduce the cost per asset, and make that UAS space really begin to take over and to get the value that we've been seeing for years in the UAS space that has been locked up.
Absolutely. And so how can folks reach you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The easiest way is on LinkedIn. I'm normally I'll be in every trade show. I'm at Exponential and Commercial, but LinkedIn is the easiest way. Thomas Jimenez on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to hear from people, and we can do live demos and show you a little more about the platform and learn a little more about your ConOps and see how we can make the platform adapt to your ConOps and get the beyond visual line of sight missions working.
Well, that's awesome. And that's all she wrote, really. So everybody, we are out here, Kongsberg Geospatial, taking beyond visual line of sight to the next level with electronic observers. Thanks so much for your time, Thomas. I learned a ton today. We are out here.
Thanks.